All right, welcome everyone to Claimed Podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest with me here. Her name is Stephanie. She's been one of the biggest success stories of our Claimed group coaching program. She's calling all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome to Claimed.
How are you? Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, I know. How do you feel? I know this might be a little bit nervous for women who are not doing that professionally.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous, but it's just going to be a conversation just like we have in our group and things like that. So, and it's something that I'm really excited to talk about. So,
Yeah,
should be good.
sure. Awesome. Thank you. Well, thanks for being here. I mean, Stephanie, this is, it's a personal subject, obviously. And so I'm very, very grateful that you decided to share that. And I know that the women listening are really going to appreciate and perhaps learn from you or maybe be motivated to join us. We'll see what happens. So let's begin, Stephanie, with you just introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you come from, what you do.
Well, I was born in the United States, traveled around the world a little bit in my 20s, and settled in Australia. And met my partner while I was traveling here. And I've worked in the leisure industry at for leisure centers and pools and council rec centers for a number of years, and which right now there's not a lot of that happening. So now I'm spending my days at home.
Yeah, okay, cool. I told you that you need to teach me how to swim. You're going to be my next swimming teacher.
I love it. I love to. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world is to teach adults who want to learn how to swim or swim better. So it's one of my favorite things.
Oh, well, why is that one of your favorite things?
Um, every adult student, especially that I encounter, they're so brave. With learning a new skill,
Mm.
especially something like swimming when you're a grown up. It's much more of a psychological uh, game. It's learning, overcoming a lot of things that we've built up over our years. Whereas children are generally fearless, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that about them. But teaching an adult learning how to swim is, they're people are so brave, they're so hardworking, they're really working to overcome things like fear or previous failure. So it's amazing. Yeah, it's really is my favorite part of it.
Yeah, awesome. I can totally resonate because I'm thinking about me and like even, learn. I mean, I know how to swim, but I swim like a froggy or whatever it's called. And then when I go to my gym and I do go to the pool and I see all these guys, with their like swimming caps and their little glasses and their tiny speedos and then I like go for it. How do you call
That's
that?
right.
I don't even know how you call that swimming.
Freestyle, like a freestyle stroke, right? Or
Yeah,
a
I
crawl.
can't I can't do that. And I was looking at them I'm like, ooh, and it brings me some anxiety, like something's wrong with me that I can't swim properly. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like it takes like you got to be
Absolutely.
brave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, so yeah, no, so that's I've learned that I've loved that part of
Yeah,
it. So
awesome. Okay. Well, today we're here to talk about something else, Stephanie, which is men and relationships. So you've been in the program, in the Claim Group Coaching program, since like a few months now, I believe. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me more about. I'm really curious. How did you actually find about my work, and then why did you decide to sign up for a discovery call?
um well I it was not something that I'd previously had a lot of interest or a lot of knowledge, I would say, about. But this past year, a long-term relationship of several years basically fell apart, and we decided to split up. I decided to split up with my partner that I'd been with for several years. At the time, sort of on a temporary basis, or a, not quite sure what we would do, but split up. And sort of in the emotional aftermath of that, I went online and just sort of, without a lot of thought around it, but sort of went looking for a fix, or a solution, or at least information that I could use to kind of, not only to kind of soothe myself or to deal with the emotions I was feeling, but to maybe figure out why, or figure out what to do differently in the future. And so I kind of just wandered around the internet a little bit, wandered around YouTube, and I ran across a video of a young woman, and she talked a lot about a feminine approach to relationships and things like that. But a lot of her things that she puts in her video are very surface level. She's talking about style and cosmetics and things like that. But at one point, she did say the phrase something about women being built to receive, to lean back, to receive, to be supported. And that resonated with me on a level that wasn't, I didn't quite know what that meant. But I really felt, I said, oh, that's a really interesting sort of feeling that it sparked in me. And so I literally went and typed a phrase like that into Google, and your articles were amongst the search results. And so started reading your articles, and they contained a lot of things, like, you're talking about feminine polarity, but you were talking about them on a much deeper level than simply, wearing pretty clothes, or doing makeup and lighting a candle and feeling feminine. And those are really, I've learned how those are important parts of it, but your articles spoke to kind of a deeper relationship with men, deeper relationships with ourselves. So that's so I started at a very surface level, and your articles went a bit deeper, and resonating with that same feeling the whole time. And so basically chose to do the discovery call at that point, after reading a few of those. So.
Okay, do you remember your discovery call with me? How was it?
I do. And I loved the phrase that you used at one point, where I was very eager. I said, I didn't feel like I really needed to talk too much to you, because I kind of already knew, or I already had a feeling. So I was like, yep, credit card in hand, do it now. But as you mentioned at one point, even though I was excited and enthusiastic, I didn't know what I was getting myself into either. I didn't know the depths, to the depths that it would eventually take me. I didn't know it would be as expansive as this, that it would affect not just my relationship, but the other parts of my life as well. So.
Yeah. Okay. So from what you're telling me is that you really came to a desire within you. You were like trying to figure it out, what happened in your long-term relationship, that it fell apart, you guys split up, and then you were looking for a solution. Why, what went wrong, and what you're not doing right. And then you found a video of a woman talking about feminine energy, and that kind of sprinkles on top. And then you started Googling more, and that led you to my articles, and then obviously my webinar, and then signing up for discovery call. And in the discovery call, so through the articles, you really knew you resonated, and then I guess you really knew you wanted to work on that. And that's why I remember you signed up without asking much. And that's why I really love this example, Stephanie, because I think what's most important is the resonance that you feel with the material or with the person that you're on the call. And you knew beforehand, you didn't know the extent to which we were going to dive into all of that. But I love that you trusted your, I guess, intuition and your decision and the process to take you there. So, Stephanie, what happened next? So you signed up for the program, you enrolled. So tell me what happened next, and perhaps like to not make this, because we can talk about this for hours. You've been
Absolutely.
posting in our group. Oh my God, your posts, like I've put them on our reviews page and everything. You've just been so, like the way you even, and I see that in your post and how you're now commenting on other women in the group, like you really got it. I don't know if there was a click, like the way you think now. I see, and I know I commented on some women, like, listen to Stephanie, she knows what she's talking about, because you started almost thinking like me when it comes to relationship, when it comes to men. And when I saw that, and I want to thank you, because this is for me my intention with every single woman that comes into the program, so that you literally have a powerful transformation, a shift, aha moments. You change the way you interact with men, and you also, this becomes a new way of life where you literally start feeling and thinking like me about men and relationships. So let's talk about what happened after you signed up and some of your biggest aha moments.
Well, I really loved it. Was so interesting. The first two sort of modules in the program, you're talking about polarity. I think I'm like a lot of women that we enter and we sign up to the program again because we're thinking about our relationships with men. We're thinking about men. We're either struggling with our relationships with men, or again, a failed relationship with men. But then after about the first or second module, especially when you sort of talk about sort of limiting beliefs, the shift becomes focusing on you. So you kind of enter the program, with an external, sort of problem. But very quickly, almost without realizing it, you've flipped it around, and you're actually feeding yourself and taking care of yourself, and discovering things about yourself. And that's, I think, and, in any subsequent situation where I maybe didn't apply the tools well enough or something like that, and I review the situation afterwards, I think to myself, oh, well, the problem is I've fallen back into an old mindset of, attempting to control external factors or control what someone else says or does. And I've lost the focus on myself. So I think that's the big shift is I think women sort of look at the program and enroll in the program because they think, oh, I want to deal with an external situation. But of course the truth is that it shifts with, it's a shift within yourself and a focus on yourself. And I think that was my big aha moment, was going through and excavating limiting beliefs, because I'd been into sort of personal development. I've read a lot of the literature that's out there, the really classic literature, and so I thought to myself, oh, I'm relatively healthy, in regards to this, and I'd been exposed to those ideas, but I really only understood them on a sort of intellectual level without really being able to apply them. And the practice of embodiment is the missing piece. It's the the thing that I'd not come in contact with before, and it really made it so that those concepts, I can actually apply them in my life, rather than reading them in a book and thinking, oh, that's really nice, but having zero way of applying them. So
yeah, okay, well, we should definitely dive deeper into that, because I think it's so important. So what you're saying is, I love this idea, and that's what I think a lot of women have it, like, right, like when there's a problem in relationships between men and women are like, right, what, first of all, I think a lot of women just realize that, all right, there's something that I'm doing, or what am I doing wrong? That's the big question, right? And that's the first shift that needs to happen, and how women actually come to find my work, because a lot of women are still in that mindset, it's the men, it's not me. So now this shift happens, like, what am I doing, right? So you're looking for a solution, and then when you're coming in, you're actually realizing, and you're right, like a lot of women come to this program, right, this is going to be about men, about fixing whatever I'm doing wrong with men. And when I think I told you even on the call, I can't remember now because it was a few months ago. And when I tell women, it's not about men. In fact, I mean, it is about men in the context. That's the result that we
Yep.
want. And I love that you're sharing your story, Stephanie, because this is your story is where you're not a single woman. I mean, it's kind of like a bit of a limbo state right now, right? Because you've split up and maybe you're getting back together, you don't know. But this just shows that the process is the same for women in relationships, for women who are splitting up, figuring it out, or if you're single, because it's all about, number one, what you said, it's all about you. In fact, 60 to 70% of the program, or even the whole program, is all about you. We definitely talk about men towards the end, but it's really that shift that needs to happen. And then to your second point about beliefs, excavating limiting beliefs, and not only understanding that on a mental level, which is one of the biggest difference, I believe, in the work that I do and this program, is that you're right. So many of us, and I'm talking about myself as well, know about beliefs and limiting beliefs, but how do you actually apply them, transform them, and make them work in real life, right? So because you can write these new beliefs that you want, and look at them and repeat the affirmations and everything, but for a lot of people that doesn't actually work. So my next question to you, Stephanie, is number one, what would you say were some of the biggest kind of limiting beliefs that you have excavated? And then I'm curious about, what do you mean by applying them? So after that, let's talk about, first, if you could answer that question, then I'll ask you the next question I have. Yeah. So what are the biggest
Sure.
beliefs that you've excavated?
Absolutely. I grew up in a scenario where my parents had 3 daughters, and we were expected to be very high performing. So this very sort of modern progressive idea that we had to excel academically, excel in whatever sort of in sports, and go on to higher education and excel there, and go on and look at high-powered jobs and career success, and that was, those were the values that were hammered home to me, and which is understandable. It's that kind of response to sort of previous generations where women did not have access to a lot of those things, did not have play those sorts of roles in society, and so there are a lot of benefits, of course, to that, but the relationship side, relating to people, how do you make a happy family, make a happy home as you progress through adulthood, that was never addressed. Those discussions were never ever had in my house, so I simply had to sort of fall into line in that regard, but and that definitely, and so we talk about drilling down to sort of really core limiting beliefs, and I think my main one that I excavated was that you're only as good as your achievements. That a human being is only as good as and is as lovable as as their achievement and their career and their success is, rather than and really neglecting that relationship side of things, and caring for yourself. And so as a child, I learned to sacrifice a lot of my needs in the pursuit of achievement, those types of external achievements, and I think, like a lot of women in the program and out in the world, are finding that there is that missing piece, that's not everything, which blew my mind, I think, because my upbringing was a response to women only ever having the chance to be mothers and housewives, but being a parent, or having a family and being in a partnership, and those are fulfilling things for people as well. And that side of things was completely neglected in my experience. So that's where I found myself. And that feeling was building in, that dissatisfaction was building throughout my adulthood, but it really only came to a head sort of in my 30s now. So.
Okay. Wow, yeah, you're only as good as your achievements. That belief is definitely, on the at the root cause of a lot of what I believe what we're seeing today, and how women, are. That is like that has been my story, and so many stories of women who are in the program and what we're working through. And so I'm curious, like that belief, because obviously you came into the program to like figure out what you're doing wrong in relationships or what happened. So how has that impacted the relationship that you had with your men? So how did that provide an answer for you, or perhaps what were you doing wrong?
Absolutely. I was giving myself completely to work. I was, I kind of said, whatever it kind of takes, however many hours it takes. I was working for 3 different organizations when everything fell apart. I was commuting to one of them quite a distance, during part of the year. I was working something like 70 hours a week, depending on where that was. And it's not, and it wasn't necessarily an issue of time. So it's sort of, I was still able to kind of fit in time with my partner, but when I did have downtime, I was so completely exhausted that I couldn't, I couldn't be there for anyone else, much less even myself. I was just simply physically very exhausted and was developing a few health issues as a result. And then, so I think there was a resentment then that I was completely tapped out, and then to go home to a partner who then, I think you fall into a feeling that, oh, now this person wants something from me too. So you've given yourself, bosses and your work demands things of you all day long, and then all of a sudden you come home, and rather than being a sanctuary or a place of sort of rest from that, all of a sudden here's someone else standing in front of you, and they don't necessarily ask for things from you, but you feel you're in that mode. You feel like you have to give it to them, and you have nothing left to give, and resentment builds. And it really has very little to do, again, with the other person. It's completely how you're feeling and perceiving things at that point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's very clear that, having that belief, so kind of deducing from what you say, having that belief that you're only as good as your achievements, then that thought process and the behaviors and everything you do in your life is kind of are driven by that belief. And then you tend to be the workhorse, as as I use that metaphor a lot. And then you go, push, do in order to kind of prove that, like my achievements equals to my worth and who I am as a woman. And then when it comes to your partner, as you said, there's nothing left to give because you're like exhausted and you're constantly on that mode. And I love how you said there's nothing left to give to anyone else, and most importantly me. And then it creates this kind of cycle that never ends, and it creates health issues and things like that. So what's the fix, Stephanie? Tell us about the fix, the quick magic pill. Which there's no quick magic pills, but so what really happened, and what's the piece that helped you shift?
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I consumed all of the material, and I listened to your podcast while also going through the modules, and still reading your articles. And it's so interesting what resonates with you on a particular day. But one of them is in your article about in 10 rules of being claimed, the rule about you get the biggest piece. And for some reason, when I read that, it must have been that particular day, whatever mindset I was in, is that just, it absolutely shattered kind of my world, because I thought, oh, if I get the biggest piece and everyone else, sort of, comes after that, I am so much stronger. I'm so much happier. I'm so much, my strength comes from me replenishing myself and giving myself the biggest piece. For some reason that it absolutely, I went, that's what I'm going to do from now on is, when I wake up in the morning, it used to be you'd get up, I'd make the coffee, I'd walk the dog, I'd start thinking about sort of what was going to be demanded of me coming up at work or whatever. I'd ask my partner if he was, had his, work stuff all set out and ready to go type of thing. And I thought, I am not going to do anything for anyone else first thing in the morning. I'm going to start by doing what I feel like for myself, basically. So that sort of little one thing, so changing my morning routine from getting up and immediately attending to others' needs. And I said, nope, we're going to throw all of that away. And I'm going to make sure that I'm, nourishing myself, not only what I feel like doing, but what I know will also, a routine, things that are good for me. So I think that was probably where I really started to shift. I probably did that within the first 2 weeks of doing the modules and doing the program. And so I basically said, yep, I'm going to start my day focusing on myself. And that has helped the ball rolling with everything else. So.
Yeah, and that that just goes back to what you said, some of the biggest shifts focusing on you, right? So it's like this idea that you get the best piece or the biggest piece shattered my world. And I think it really comes to, and I talk about this obviously in the 10 rules of being claimed. For everybody listening, these are actual podcast episodes. The 10 rules of being claimed, I mentioned them briefly in module 4 of the program, but then I took each one of them and created like a half an hour episode where I explained, and I put it out there on the Instagram and all of that. And on the podcast as well. And that's really, I guess changing and shifting your perspective from like putting yourself first as something selfish to putting yourself first as something absolutely necessary, especially for women, knowing that women always give, and they have a lot of trouble with receiving. And so changing that around and being like, you get the best space and you train everyone around you to do the same, then it fills up your cup, whether you do it in the morning. I mean, not whether, but I'm like, yep, having morning routine. We actually discussed this today on our Q&A call with all the other women, because a lot of women in the program are like so busy and they're like, I can't do my practice or my flow or my morning routine in the morning because and I'm like, well, yeah, cool. Like, it's better to do the practice whenever you can rather than not. But at the same time, if you're, waking up and the first thing you do is everything else for other people, then I really, really recommend that you start doing 5 minutes a day of a practice where you focus on yourself. So I totally see, Stephanie, how this is such a big shift. It happened for me as well. So it's been great. But now I really want to talk about what you said, the missing piece and all of the beliefs. So you have been exposed to personal growth before and beliefs, but the missing piece was actually applying it, right? And you're already talking about application here, like changing your routine and focusing on yourself. And then you kind of briefly mentioned feminine embodiment. And feminine embodiment, for those of you who do not know, I'm a certified feminine embodiment coach, and the whole program and the theory and all of this is weaved with feminine embodiment practices that I put together for you to download and listen. But we also continuously do this in our Q&A calls and in the coaching. So tell me more about that, because I know you've had some great experiences with it. And what is this what you mean by applying, and how would you describe that for women? Like, how would you describe feminine embodiment, all these practices for women who have no idea what this is, and how would you describe that, I guess, missing piece of application of all these concepts?
Absolutely. Yeah, yes. The answer to one of those questions is feminine embodiment is absolutely 100% the missing piece. As I said, I love to point to one of my favorites is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which
Mm-hmm.
which I read when I was a young woman, and again, intellectually understood and really, really loved I went, oh, I can understand how these would affect your life and make your life great and make your experience as a human great. But because it's written by a man, um, it's, which is lovely. I mean, the concepts apply to all people, but he writes it and basically tells people how to get to that place, or in a very sort of masculine way. Whereas for women to achieve things like, or to really understand things like radical responsibility, or to really understand interdependence, we really have to feel them in our bodies, and that's what I mean by the missing piece. Is I was a very intellectual, cerebral, again, really academically achieving, a high intelligent person, understood everything in a really rational, cerebral way, and this absolutely has changed everything when all of a sudden I'm in my body, feeling the feelings. How does it feel? Holding, feeling things in my muscles, in my connective tissues, in my lungs when I'm breathing, in my throat when it's tight, things like that. There's a wisdom there, and that I think is the true wisdom. That when you can feel something, for example, like a concept like radical responsibility in your cells of your body, it's very effortless to then act in that way in real life, if you will, or out in the physical plane, in the physical world. So that's was a really interesting thing, was that I had knowledge of those concepts, but I didn't really understand them at a deeper level until I experienced them in my body through this practice. And so I think that's why I say that's the missing piece, because then, for example, when there's an action item, for example, in your modules, that you then go and, for example, observe polarity on a date, or when there's something that then you've kind of directed us to go out and kind of do, that's much more effortless, or it takes a lot less effort, because you felt it in your body first. So it's, and I think I've come to a place after this program where words mean less. That words don't have the power, speech doesn't have the power that it did for me. I used to be a debater, and love to talk, of course, and now I kind of understand that those feelings, the unspoken, is potentially a lot more powerful.
Wow. I think, Stephanie, you should teach this program, because I mean, you've explained it actually perfectly, and sometimes feminine embodiment and what I do can be so hard to understand. But I love what you said, because it's really about that. And that's what, like, we talked about on the call. And you don't necessarily have to actually even know how this works, but you just got to do it. But now you have such a great understanding, because number one, you showed up and you actually did the practice, every day, as I have recommended, and then you showed up on the Q&A calls when we're really feeling into that. And you're right, like, all of the concepts we know about them, like you mentioned, radical responsibility, which I talk about in module 2, interdependence, or whatever you're dealing with in the moment. It's one thing to really understand it, but it's another thing to actually experience it. How does it feel in every single cell? How does it feel in your body? Radical responsibility. And that is the disconnect. And especially, I love what you said, for women, it's so important. To actually not only understand it, but actually get it and feel it in your body. And this is what feminine embodiment is actually all about. It's the truth of who you are, and getting into that place and accessing those deeper currents in your body, in your psyche, in your field that you have not accessed before. And I definitely saw that transformation in you. And I know you also had, like, I don't know, like some knots in your body have completely gone away. Like you've had some pretty powerful results from the practice of feminine embodiment. So that's amazing. So let's talk about what are the results, Stephanie. Number one, in obviously, like, in your dynamic with your partner or with men in general, and then, like, in your life.
Well, it was really interesting because we've been in a relationship for several years with my partner, and there were absolutely moments, where, for example, he'd been in his masculine, and I had actually, sort of allowed, without realizing it, sort of him to really step into his masculine, and I'd felt moments of that, but because I didn't have a knowledge of polarity or what was going on at the time, it was very inconsistent. So one day or one experience, he could, he would do this something amazing for me, and I'd accept it and would be very excited. We'd be on cloud nine, and then we'd have a busy week at work or something like that. And because I didn't, you didn't know how to harness this. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the principles behind it. You couldn't step back and recapture that feeling. And I default to my default, the way I was raised, very masculine, sort of, intellectual controlling mode. That's what happened in the last couple of years of our relationship, is that I was defaulting to a masculine mode quite a bit, and there was conflict because he would at times, of course, when I do that, he'd step back into a feminine mode, but at his base level, he's not that, and so then there would be conflict. But we didn't know why that was happening, so that's been really it's the knowledge about polarity and how men work, and to, like, as I said, I was in a family where I didn't grow up with brothers, and then as well we were raised. I love the phrase that you use, raised as a boy, not literally, of course, but raised to really compete with men in a masculine way out in the world, and so did not understand, for example, the male journey. Didn't understand how men's brains works and how masculine energy works. So even when I misstep now, I understand that the reason is because I've gotten out of my feminine energy, that I've slipped back into old habits or old mindsets. So that gives me a lot of security, that I can simply re-access my feminine if I sort of make a mistake and I'm too judgmental or too critical or too controlling or whatever. I realize I at least know what's happening and can kind of recalibrate. And that's really expanded again to every man that I know. Sort of my interactions with men, which fortunately, I grew up with. I never grew up with the idea that men were, abusive or untrustworthy or anything like that. But this has taken it to a whole new level of respect for men, and what they go through. And I think that's, that energy is starting to really, change my interactions with the men that I know. So that's been great. And then, focusing on myself, the stuff that's changed there is I've re-engaged with art, which was something that I always, loved doing. And that gives me a lot, that just, all that fulfillment around that really came rushing back when I said, oh, I'm going to go and buy art supplies, and I'm going to go buy all kinds of equipment and materials, and make time to do it every day, even though it's not that great. But,
it is great, Stephanie. Oh my God, I've seen it.
It's not good, but that I made a post about that, and I used the phrase in that one is that was a missing part of myself again. So this practice, it's the missing piece, and it brings back the parts that were missing from me. So that was that's been a really wild ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that. So to kind of summarize the results that you've seen, because now you're seeing what you're seeing polarity at play. You understand how men work. You're able to recalibrate. You were able to work on that polarity and to get notice when you're getting into your masculine, and then go back into your feminine, allow yourself to receive, and that provides a lot of security for you. And you can recalibrate, as you said, and expand and be in those states a lot more. And I love what you said, a whole new level of respect for men. And I always, this is exactly what happens in the program, because when women come in, most women have no idea about, what men want, how they think, what they have to go through. We've never taught that. We never think about that. Where on the contrary, men constantly question them. Like, men are very interested in what women want, and men are the ones who are out there constantly digging, because they're the one to approach. They're the one to, they always think about, what does she want and how do I do that? Where we do not even think about that much, especially when I'm talking about dating and that kind of, polarity. So, and then you say, focus on yourself. I've seen your pictures of your paintings, how you're engaged with your art. And you also notice, I know, in your relationship, things have shifted, where your man, steps up and really shows up. So you really noticed that happening.
Sorry,
Oh, did we get reconnected?
Yes, it's come back in. Sorry, just repeat the question.
Okay.
You're right.
No, I was just saying that, you also have seen, you've also seen some changes between, how you interact with your partner. I know you're still kind of working things through, but the dynamic between the two has shifted and changed. And I know boundaries for you has also been a big subject.
Yes, that's right. And I think it's really the key there. It's very interesting because I kind of, when growing up, I received, sort of a second wave feminist upbringing that said sort of women are, girls are strong and women are strong type of thing, but didn't really, but they don't really talk about that much deeper than that. They don't really explain to girls, what that means. And a lot of times it's in a really, sort of combative language. But really it means protecting yourself, protecting your energy, but not in a way that's untrusting. So, that's the thing is I received a message that girls are strong, but then, for example, went and did whatever adults told me that I needed to be doing, even if it felt wrong to me. Or if it felt like something I wasn't meant to do. So I grew up to be a people pleaser. Because you have to achieve in the academic sphere. You have to please people. You have to please your teachers. You have to please your parents. And that many times means denying your needs, which is, I think, a really unfortunate thing to teach children, especially girls. And it leads to a lot of these, issues that we see in adulthood. Whereas, truly telling girls that whatever they want is okay, and then basically laying a boundary out around that, and that's one of the ways that's where the feminine strength comes from. And so I completely missed that in my upbringing. It was not even a concept that was introduced to me. And that's probably the skill that has taken the most practice for me, that's really demanded of me. So yeah, I'd say that boundary setting in a way that truly honors what you truly want. And I think that's maybe the heart of it is women don't know what they truly want because they're disconnected from their bodies. And then once you truly know what you want, is communicating that a boundary that says that won't be violated. I won't give that up. This is what it means to me. That's been my challenge. So
yeah, wow, so beautiful when you said women don't know what they truly want because they're disconnected from their bodies. Wow. What wisdom is there? Great wisdom. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I've had such it was a privilege witnessing you in this transformation. And I already told you this, but I publicly, I guess, want to thank you for trusting me, and for being such a great part of this community, for doing the work, for because I do what I do because of women like you, and like it really, and I know you've brought me to tears like a few times in the program, but it's really such a gift to be able to hold that space for you, and for you to go through these realizations and shift and transform. So I want to thank you for doing the work and for sharing that so openly, and for being so brave to come here and share that with the women who might, who are wondering, or who are where you were before you got to experience this, not only understand it, but also most importantly experience it. So I guess the last part of our discussion here is tell the women listening now. I'm sure they're curious about the program itself. Like, imagine a woman is asking you, well, Stephanie, okay, what is this claimed group coaching program about? How would you describe that? Like, how would you summarize that experience?
Well, I really love it. I love the format because, when we sign up for the program, the women who sign up for it are really busy. They're really, they've got a lot of demands on them. And I think the format, you go, here it is online. Here's all of the information, in this virtual, in this digital space, and this group, this lovely sort of private, sort of you kind of get inducted into the secret doorway, and you come in and enter into it, and but and it's laying out there. It's not, and you're not on a time frame. to complete it. It's not, it's not like you have to adhere to, a very strict sort of, sort of regimented type of thing. And so that's really wonderful for really busy lives. And I really like how you say, look, here's the material, here's when the groups, the Q&A calls happen and things like that. But, if you drop out of the program for a week or two because life overwhelms you, it's no big deal. Nothing's been lost. Nothing, there's no permanent damage done. You just step back in. And, your discussion about sort of like feminine flow is like, start with just 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes. And of course, the moment that happens, and you do a bit of it, that the women, of course, you just take it up. You get addicted, and you make space for it in your life. But it's really lovely to step into this program and not feel like it's we're not in boot camp. There's no
no boot camps here.
and this change, we've talked about this change, and I look back and experience, I go, oh my God, it's just this huge change. But it didn't feel like stressful. It didn't feel like it was happening too quickly, or that it was ever out of my control, or that it ever demanded more of me than I could give at the time. It was dictated by me. And so that's, the structure of the program is really lovely and welcoming to women who are busy and have busy lives. And it only demands very little, and the results are just huge. They're just just absolutely quantum shifts that happen for very little work, because you do tap into that feminine energy, which, if you're a feminine person, is your natural state. So it's effortless, almost just about effortless. So that's, I really love that. The modules are really, really informative and really easy to go back to. And then you kind of step into the Facebook group and see that other women are really going through the same process. They're like, oh, I'm in module 2, and this is, and their stories, while not always exactly the same as yours, you are having the same, you're joined by women who are going through the same experience, and that's a really wonderful communal feeling there as well. So it really combines the best of both worlds in terms of the digital space is really welcoming, the digital format is really welcoming, but then the group itself provides that really strong support for going through it. So it doesn't feel like a big scary sort of thing to tackle. It's it's good. It has its challenging moments, but they're not. It's not a big sort of mountain to climb. For example, it doesn't feel like a mountain to climb. So it's wonderful.
Wow, sounds like an amazing program, Stephanie. Sign me up.
Everybody should.
Yeah, so tell women, so, to all the women listening who, so the podcast listeners, obviously some of them are already in the program, but to women who, perhaps are wondering or thinking, should I sign up for a discovery call? Maybe they have been on a discovery call, but they didn't go for it yet, and, they're like not sure. What would you say to someone who's considering it, and why would you recommend it?
Oh, do it. Absolutely do it. You'll find something that helps you. Even if for some reason you don't experience enormous shifts within 10 weeks, you'll find something that helps you. It's absolutely worth it. You'll meet people. You'll connect with people that women that are experiencing the same thing as you. So you actually make friends. If that's something that really is helpful for you. You should do it, no matter, as a woman, and especially no matter what your status is. As you said, a lot of the women are single and dating, but there are lots of women in the program that are like me, for example, have been divorced, are in relationships, all ages. So it really, this is fundamental stuff to our experience, and it really reaches across sort of age and life experience, and wherever you're coming from, it pertains to you. So yeah, no, do it. I recommend everyone go and sign up. Come and join us.
Come and join us, because you're Stefan, you're still in it, and that's what I love about this experience. And I tell every single woman that, when I teach and what I guide you through these practices, I still do them in my daily life, and the work never ends. And I know this kind of sounds like, the work never ends, but whether I'm married to my masculine man for like 3 years now, and we have a baby, but I constantly continue to study and learn and step into that space of feminine power. And then I can see how that, then translates into all other areas of my life, and, the business and the career and everything. And I constantly practice. So, and when you join the program, you have pretty much lifetime access to the program. So Stephanie, you're still coming on Q&A calls because you just want to get deeper and deeper, and you want to take advantage of that support. So yeah, great. So everybody listening, sign up for your discovery call right now. If you haven't watched the webinar, the best way, I guess, for everybody listening, if you're really interested, I would really recommend it first. If you haven't watched the webinar, go to girlskill.com/webinar, sign up for the webinar, because there I really discuss a lot of these things that we talked about with Stephanie. I condensed it really well. And then at the end, I invite you to apply for your discovery call to see if you'd be a great fit for the program. And if you're like, yep, I'm ready to go, Stephanie, sign me up. Then go to girlskill.com/apply, and then there's going to be a short application that you can book a call with our team to see how we can enroll you. All right. Well, Stephanie, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and just like sharing your story, because I think it's so powerful. And looking forward to further supporting you. I'll see you in the Facebook group or next week on our Q&A calls.
No, thank you for everything, and thank you for the work that you do. It's changing the world. So thank you very much. Aww. And everyone come and join.
That's right. All right. Thanks, Stephanie. I will talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you. Bye.